There is a chemical in American flour that is banned in the United Kingdom, the European Union, Canada, China, Brazil, and India, classified as a possible human carcinogen, and still perfectly legal in the bag on your shelf. And the only place you'll see it acknowledged is a small cancer warning printed for customers in California. The same bag, the same biscuits. One state gets a warning, 49 get a windmill. The most famous flour brand in America has recalled millions of pounds of flour over E. coli and salmonella, repeatedly, because almost nobody knows that flour is a raw agricultural product, as raw as the chicken from our last investigation. And the word enriched on the label describes a product that was stripped of over 20 nutrients and handed back a handful, a legal fix for a disaster this channel already told you about in the tortilla file. Flour is in everything: the bread, the pasta, the cookies, the roux in your soup, the coating on your chicken. The average household eats it daily without ever once reading the bag, which makes it the biggest blind spot in the entire grocery run. And tonight, we close it. We're going through 10 flour brands and products you should not buy, and 3 that are actually safe. Number 10. Number 10. Bleached flour. Start with the whitest bag on the shelf. The classic budget all-purpose from the biggest names. Gold medal bleached, Pillsbury bleached, the store brand Towers, because that color is not what flour looks like. Freshly milled flour is naturally cream-colored, slightly yellow, and if you simply let it sit for a few weeks, oxygen ages it white on its own, the way millers did it for centuries. But warehouse time is money, so industrial mills speed the calendar with chemistry, treating flour with bleaching agents like benzoyl peroxide, the same compound as acne cream, and, for cake flour, chlorine gas, which whitens instantly and chemically alters the starches. The industry will tell you bleaching is safe at approved levels and improves baking performance for high-sugar recipes, and we'll report that honestly. The case against bleached flour isn't poison in your pancakes. The case is that the entire process exists to fake a signal. White meant refined, refined meant premium, so chemistry was hired to counterfeit the look of patients, and along the way, several of the bleaching and treatment agents used in American flour got banned across Europe and beyond, where regulators asked the reasonable question, why are we gassing bread ingredients to save 3 weeks of warehouse time? There's history worth knowing here too. A century ago, reformers and early food safety crusaders fought loud public battles against flour bleaching, the famous Poison Squad era of American food regulation, and the industry won the long game not by proving the practice necessary, but by outlasting the outrage. 3 generations of shoppers were simply raised on white, and the question evaporated. The tell on your shelf is one word. Bags must say bleached or unbleached, printed right on the front, one of the few honest disclosures in this aisle. And unbleached flour bakes essentially identically for almost everything a home kitchen makes. Professional bakers largely prefer it, which tells you what the bleaching was ever for, and it wasn't the baker. Same wheat, same price within pennies, minus the peroxide. It's the easiest swap in this entire series, and it's segment 10 because it's the warm-up. The next chemical made national news when people found out where else it's used. Number 9. Azodicarboxamide, the yoga mat chemical. A decade ago, a food blogger noticed that a chemical in a famous sandwich chain's bread, azodicarboxamide, ADA, was also an industrial foaming agent used in yoga mats and shoe soles, and the internet did the rest. The chain, Subway, announced it would remove ADA from its bread amid the uproar, and the yoga mat chemical entered the American vocabulary. Here's the part the news cycle skipped. ADA wasn't a Subway ingredient. It was a flour industry ingredient, a dough conditioner and flour treatment agent used across commercial baking to strengthen dough and speed production. And after the scandal, it didn't vanish, it just retreated from the brands with famous names to the products without them. Store-brand breads, budget buns, food service flour. The science, honestly stated. When ADA-treated flour is baked, it can form small amounts of breakdown compounds, including semicarbazide and, at high baking temperatures, traces of urethane, substances flagged in animal studies, which is why the European Union and Australia banned ADA in food entirely, while the FDA continues to allow it at limited levels. Whatever you conclude about trace chemistry, notice the structure of the story. The fix arrived through embarrassment, not regulation. One chain, protecting one brand, removed the chemical from its dough while the chemical stayed legal for everyone quieter. And nearly 500 food products on American shelves reportedly contained ADA at the height of the coverage, most of them still unexamined by anyone with a camera. The scandal fixed a logo, not an aisle. Your defense is the ingredient list. ADA must be declared, azotic carboxamide, on packaged flour and bread, and its presence is a reliable flag that you're holding the cheapest possible industrial formula. And if a yoga mat cameo shocked you, the next chemical has a rap sheet that should have ended its career decades ago. Number 8. Potassium bromate, the banned everywhere but here chemical. This is the most important segment in this video. Potassium bromate is a flour improver, added to strengthen dough and boost rise in industrial baking, and it has been classified as a possible human carcinogen based on animal studies showing kidney and thyroid tumors, findings strong enough that the United Kingdom banned it in 1990, the European Union banned it, Canada banned it, China banned it, Brazil banned it, India banned it, and the state of California requires products containing it to carry a Proposition 65 cancer warning. The United States FDA, meanwhile, has never banned it, relying instead on the theory that bromate converts to harmless bromide during proper baking, asking bakers voluntarily to use it sparingly, a decades-old arrangement that survives because reopening old approvals is the slowest machinery in American government. Bromate entered the food supply under rules written generations ago, and unseating a grandfathered ingredient requires the kind of regulatory war nobody has been willing to fund. California moved on its own recently, passing a state food safety law that will ban potassium bromate outright within its borders, the first state to do it, which means America is now a country where a flour additive is simultaneously a banned substance in Sacramento and a baking aid in Dallas. And the bag doesn't change, only the warning sticker does. Here's what that means on your shelf. Bromated flour is still openly sold in America, popular in some southern biscuit flours, bakery supply, pizza flour, and bagel shops, where bromate's strong rise chemistry built the texture reputations of entire cities. The legendary chew of the classic New York bagel owes a documented debt to bromated high-gluten flour, a heritage bagel shops rarely discuss out loud, and testing over the years, including surveys in the United Kingdom before its ban and spot tests since, has found detectable bromate residues in some finished baked goods, especially when baking runs fast, cool, or wet, meaning the bakes-out theory doesn't always survive contact with an actual industrial oven schedule. Let's be fair with the dose honesty this channel owes you. Trace residues are not a poisoning event. The risk conversation is about lifetime exposure. And the reason every other major food regulator on Earth banned it anyway is the simplest principle in food safety. When a possible carcinogen is entirely unnecessary, the correct dose is 0, and unbleached, unbromated flour proves daily that bread never needed it. Check your bag for the words bromated or potassium bromate. Check your local bagel and pizza joints if you're curious what their flour says, and remember the phrase that unlocks this whole video. If the label says unbromated, the brand is telling you it knows, and the brands that stay silent are hoping you don't. The next segment is the word on the bag that sounds like a gift and describes a robbery. Number 7. Enriched flour. Veterans of the tortilla file already know where this is going, because this is the pellagra story's other ending. To make shelf-stable white flour, mills strip the wheat kernel, removing the bran and the germ, the fiber, the oils, the B vitamins, the minerals, more than 20 nutrients diminished or deleted, leaving the pale, starchy endosperm that lasts for years in a warehouse. Why strip it at all? Because the germ's oils go rancid, as our whole wheat segment will detail, and stripped flour ships anywhere and stores for years. The roller mills of the Industrial Revolution made white flour cheap for the first time in history, and the masses finally got the aristocrats' white bread, minus the nutrients that made bread worth eating. In the early 20th century, that strip diet helped fuel deficiency diseases across America, including the pellagra catastrophe we covered in the tortilla file, roughly 100,000 dead, plus beriberi and other B vitamin plagues wherever refined grains conquered the plate. And the government's fix, rather than restoring the grain, was fortification law, beginning in the 1940s, requiring mills to add back a short list of synthetic nutrients, iron, niacin, thiamine, riboflavin, and later folic acid, into the stripped flour. That word enriched is that law, printed as a boast. Read it accurately. Enriched flour is flour that was impoverished by design and legally patched. 5 nutrients returned out of dozens removed. No fiber restored. No germ oils. No trace minerals. The nutritional equivalent of a burglar leaving cab fare. To be completely fair, fortification genuinely works as public health. Folic acid fortification measurably reduced neural tube birth defects after it arrived in the late 90s. The pellagra era ended, beriberi ended, and this channel reports that, with respect, fortification is one of public health's genuine victories. But a victory over a self-inflicted wound is still a wound with a bandage. The deception isn't the chemistry, it's the vocabulary. A word engineered to make the stripped product sound superior to the intact one. So successful that generations of shoppers reach for enriched believing it means extra, when whole wheat flour needs no enriching because nothing was taken. Break the original, patch the symptom, print a flattering label, the exact sentence from our tortilla file, now stamped on 200 million pantries. Quick pause, hit like and subscribe, because we decode one aisle every single week, and this aisle has been overdue for a century. All set? The next trick is a single missing word doing heavy lifting. Number 6. The wheat flour word games. Here's a label trick so small it's almost elegant. Flip a loaf of brown-looking bread or a bag of flour blend and find the first ingredient, wheat flour. Sounds wholesome, sounds whole grain, means neither. Wheat flour is the legal name for ordinary refined white flour, because all flour is from wheat. The sentence is true the way water is wet. The whole grain version must say whole wheat flour, one word, whole, carrying the entire difference between the intact grain and the stripped one. Manufacturers know shoppers skim, so brown breads are routinely colored with molasses or caramel color over a white flour base, wearing the costume of the health loaf beside them, and the front of the package deploys the multigrain family, multigrain, 7-grain, 12-grain, made with whole grains, ancient grain blend, phrases with no meaningful minimum requirement behind them. A bread can be overwhelmingly white flour with a ceremonial sprinkle of oats glued to the crust, and legally wear most of those words. Multigrain literally promises only that more than one grain attended. In any amounts, in any condition, 7 grains can mean 7 pinches. It's the natural trick and the vanilla speck trick wearing a harvest costume. There's even a shade browner version of the trick. Wheat bread, as a product name, means bread made from wheat, which is all bread. The name works on your ear like whole wheat while promising nothing. And it sits on the shelf tinted tan for exactly that reason. The rule that cuts through all of it costs 5 seconds. Ignore the front entirely, read the first ingredient, and accept only the word whole in front of the grain. Whole wheat, whole rye, whole oats. First position, no negotiation. And if you want the audited version, the Whole Grain Council's stamp with a declared gram count beats every adjective the front can print. If the health language on the front survives contact with the first line on the back, buy it. It almost never survives. And even when you win that game and buy the real whole wheat bag, the next segment is the problem waiting inside it. Number 5. Stale and rancid whole wheat flour. Here's the whole grain aisle's dirty secret, and almost no one has ever said it to you plainly. Whole wheat flour contains the germ, and the germ contains oils, and oils go rancid. Fresh whole wheat flour is sweet, nutty, alive. But rancidity begins within weeks of milling at room temperature, and the industrial supply chain, mill, warehouse, distributor, shelf, pantry, routinely delivers whole wheat flour that is months old before your first scoop, which is why so many people secretly find whole wheat baking bitter, cardboardy, vaguely sour, and conclude they just don't like whole wheat. They've often never tasted it fresh. They've tasted oxidation, an entire nation's opinion of whole wheat, formed by stale product, one of the great unforced errors in food retail. And here's the quiet economics. The bargain whole wheat bags at the big box price sit longest and travel furthest, meaning the cheapest whole grain flour is frequently the most degraded food in the baking aisle, sold to the exact shoppers trying hardest to eat better. And rancid oils aren't just a flavor problem. Oxidized fats are precisely what nutrition science tells you not to eat, the whole point of choosing the whole grain, quietly rotting in the bag before you got there. White flour, stripped of its oils, doesn't have this clock, which is the dark irony of the aisle. The industrial product is shelf-stable precisely because the nutritious parts were removed. Shelf life and nutrition were traded for each other a century ago, and the trade is still on the shelf, unlabeled. Your defenses are simple. Buy whole wheat in smaller bags from brands that date their milling. Store it in the freezer where rancidity nearly stops. An airtight container in the freezer keeps whole wheat honest for 6 months or more. Smell it, genuinely. Open the bag and inhale. Fresh flour smells faintly sweet and nutty. Rancid flour smells like old crayons. Oil paint and bitterness, a smell you'll recognize instantly once you've compared. And trust that test over any date printed on plastic, because the best buy date was calculated for the bag, not the germ. Or skip the aging problem entirely with the pics at the end of this video, because there's a version of this product where freshness is the entire business model. The next segment moves from staleness to something the label will never disclose at all. Number 4. The glyphosate question in your wheat. Regular viewers met glyphosate in our oatmeal investigation, the world's most used weed killer, and here's its wheat chapter. Beyond routine weed control, some non-organic wheat in northern growing regions receives glyphosate as a pre-harvest desiccant, sprayed on the mature crop to dry it down evenly for earlier harvest in wet climates, which means application close to the finish line. And residue testing by advocacy groups and independent labs has repeatedly reported detectable glyphosate in flour, bread, crackers, and wheat cereals. The same pattern the Environmental Working Group made famous with oats. Generally below regulatory limits, the industry answers. Though below the limit and absent are different words. And the limit itself is a number regulators revisit as science argues. And around the same debate we've reported before. The World Health Organization's Cancer Agency classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans, while the EPA and European food regulators disagree. An unresolved scientific standoff running through courtrooms and journals for a decade, including verdicts and settlements worth billions in the famous Roundup litigation, which concerned different exposure levels than dietary traces, and we owe you that honesty. So we'll give you the same steady sentence as always. Trace residues below limits are not an emergency, and the shopper who prefers zero has exactly one word available: organic. Because certified organic prohibits glyphosate entirely, including the desiccation practice. And organic flour carries one of the smallest price premiums in the entire organic universe, often under $1 a bag. In a product your family eats daily, in bread, in pancakes, in birthday cakes and Sunday biscuits, compounding across thousands of meals a decade, that dollar is the cheapest insurance the label sells, and it simultaneously buys out of the bleach, the bromate, and the ADA from earlier segments, because organic standards prohibit those treatments too. One word, 4 problems, gone. The next segment is the danger nobody suspects because it's been sitting in the mixing bowl since childhood. Number 3. Raw flour. The raw ingredient nobody treats like one. Answer honestly. Have you eaten raw cookie dough, licked the cake beater, let a kid taste the batter? Everyone has, and everyone worried about the raw egg. Here's what the last decade of outbreaks proved. The egg was never the only problem. The flour was. Flour is a raw agricultural product, milled from wheat that grew in open fields, visited by birds, wildlife, and runoff, and it receives no kill step at the mill, no cooking, no pasteurizing, nothing between the field and your bag except grinding and sifting. The mill is a grinder, not a kitchen, which is exactly why the CDC now warns bluntly, do not eat raw dough or batter, do not let children play with raw dough, and treat flour dust in the kitchen like what it is, a raw food. The bacteria involved are not casual. The E. coli strain in the flour outbreaks was the toxin-producing kind that can cause kidney failure in children. Several outbreak victims were kids who ate or handled raw dough, and a dry powder turns out to be an excellent place for pathogens to lie dormant, waiting for your wet batter to wake them. The record is public and repetitive. In 2016, General Mills recalled tens of millions of pounds of gold medal, Signature Kitchens, and Wondra flour amid a multi-state E. coli outbreak that sickened dozens across more than 20 states. More recalls followed in 2019 across multiple brands, Gold Medal again, Pillsbury lots, and even premium names like King Arthur pulling flour that year. And in 2023, a salmonella outbreak traced to raw flour drove yet another gold medal recall. Illness after illness, recall after recall, with the same root cause, people eating raw flour and raw dough they believed was inert, because a bag of white powder simply doesn't register as raw meat, and nothing on the front of the bag has ever tried to change that. Notice what this does to the brand question. Contamination isn't a budget brand failing. It's a raw commodity reality that has humbled the biggest names in the aisle, which is why the real dividing line isn't who packed the bag, it's who in your kitchen knows what flour is. And notice what the industry never did through all of it. No warning label on the bag, decades of cookie dough jokes in commercials, cake batter as a flavor of everything, an entire culture built around licking the spoon by the same companies whose product line was the reason not to. The CDC warning exists because the packaging never volunteered. Treat it like the raw ingredient it is. Bake it, cook it, wash hands and bowls after handling it like you would with raw chicken from our chicken file. And if the family tradition demands edible cookie dough, heat treat the flour first, spread it on a tray, and bake it to 165 like the chicken from our chicken file. The same magic number twice in one series is not a coincidence, it's microbiology. Or buy the edible dough products made with treated flour, an entire product category that exists now precisely because of these outbreaks. Flour spent a century being the most trusted powder in the kitchen. The record says trust the oven instead. The next segment is what that same industry does to flour on the specialty shelf. Number 2. Cake flour, self-rising, and the specialty shelf. The specialty flour shelf is where the treatments from tonight concentrate. Cake flour, the secret of impossibly soft American cakes, is chlorinated flour, treated with chlorine gas, which weakens proteins and alters starch, so batters hold more sugar and fat. That's the actual mechanism. The boxed cake texture of American birthdays is partly a gas treatment, a chemical modification banned for flour in much of Europe, where bakers make soft cakes anyway using technique, finer milling, and recipe balance instead of chlorine, and where nobody at the party notices anything missing. Self-rising flour premixes baking powder and salt into the bag, convenient, beloved in Southern baking, and quietly a staleness trap, because baking powder loses power over months, betraying the occasional baker it was sold to. Flat biscuits blamed on Grandma's recipe when the bag was the culprit, and many conventional baking powders bring sodium-aluminum compounds along. The source of the metallic tang in some biscuits, aluminum-free baking powder exists, and says so on the can. One more label phrase worth learning. Bread machine flours, biscuit blends, and food service bags round out the shelf carrying the bromate and ADA chemistry from earlier segments at their highest concentrations, because industrial and quasi-industrial baking is where those additives live. None of these products will hurt you at a birthday party. We owe you the honest dose sentence as always, and Grandma's self-rising biscuits remain a treasure regardless of what this channel thinks of the bag. The pattern is the point. Every step away from the plain bag adds treatment, and every treatment exists for the factory's convenience, not your cake. Softer crumb through chlorine instead of cake technique. Insurance rise through bromate instead of good flour. Convenience through premixes that stale in the pantry. The plain bag, unbleached, unbromated, untreated, does everything these products do with one extra minute of skill, and the skill is free forever. Which brings us to number 1. And number 1 is 4 words that beat this entire aisle. Number 1. Buying flour without reading 4 words. Here's the master key, and this aisle compresses better than any we've covered, because flour bags, unlike almost everything else in the supermarket, must confess their treatments in plain English. 4 words, that's the entire audit. Word 1, unbleached, no benzoyl peroxide, no chlorine, flour aged by air the way it aged for centuries. Word 2, unbromated, no potassium bromate, no possible carcinogen, no California warning. And brands proudly print this word precisely because they know, if the bag says nothing about bromate, look for it in the ingredient list before trusting it. Word 3, for the whole grain bags, whole, first ingredient, first position, whole wheat flour, the one small word the brown costume breads structurally cannot fake. Word 4, organic, optional, but it's the single word that answers the glyphosate segment entirely. Bans the bleach, the bromate, and the ADA as a package deal, and usually costs under $1 extra on flour. The best value the word organic offers anywhere in the store. Then the 2-second bonus checks you've earned tonight. Scan the ingredient list for azo-dicarboxamide or potassium bromate, and walk away from either. And on whole wheat, check for a milled-on date and use your nose. Sweet means fresh, crayons means rancid, and the freezer is where the good bag lives once opened. That's it. No app, no memorized brand list, 4 words printed in plain sight on every honest bag in America. And the bags missing them are telling you exactly what they are. The front of a flour bag is a windmill that doesn't exist, grinding wheat that was never near it. The 4 words are the deed. Read the deed. So what should actually be in your pantry? 3 that are actually safe. First, King Arthur, the benchmark and the brand that made the 4 words famous. King Arthur is a 2-century-old, 100% employee-owned company, founded in 1790, older than most of the states its flour ships to, that has never bleached and never bromated its flour, prints it proudly on every bag, publishes tight protein specs that professional bakers swear by for consistency, runs a baking school and a free baker's hotline, and pushes transparency in an industry built on white silence, a certified B Corporation whose entire brand is the argument this video has been making for 30 minutes. Honesty requires the footnote from our recall segment. King Arthur pulled flour lots in 2019 during the industry's E. coli reckonings and handled it with public, detailed recalls, which is exactly what responsible looks like in a raw commodity. No brand escapes wheat being wheat. The difference is who tells you fast. For everyday all-purpose bread and whole wheat, this is the mainstream answer. Stocked nearly everywhere. $1 more than the budget bag. And the 4 words come standard. You're not paying for a windmill. You're paying for the absence of everything this video covered. Second, Bob's Red Mill, the whole grain specialist, and the answer to our rancidity segment. Bob's another employee-owned operation. Its founder famously handed the company to his workers on his 81st birthday. Built its name on stone milling, grinding grain between actual quartz millstones, the slower, cooler process that keeps the germs, oils, and flavor intact instead of scorching them on steel rollers, and moves its whole grain flours with the turnover and dating that fresh whole wheat demands, which is why their whole wheat tastes sweet where the bargain bags taste bitter. The lineup also covers every alternative flour a modern kitchen chases: oat, almond, rye, spelt, buckwheat, one trusted label across the whole wall. And the packaging talks about the actual grain more honestly than anyone at that scale. For anything whole grain, this is the shelf answer. Pair it with the freezer once opened, and your whole wheat baking stops tasting like the cardboard that turned you off it years ago. And third, a local mill or fresh milled organic flour. The format is proof pick. The local grain movement has quietly rebuilt small mills across the country. And if a farmer's market or regional mill operates anywhere near you, buying flour milled that week is this aisle's tortilleria moment, the upgrade that resets your standards permanently. Fresh milled flour, especially whole grain, is aromatic in a way supermarket bags cannot legally imitate. Sweet, grassy, alive. Your pancakes will announce the difference by smell before the first bite. Bakers describe first encounters with fresh milled flour the way coffee people describe leaving instant behind, and buying it organic closes every loop from tonight at once. No bleach, no bromate, no ADA, no glyphosate, no warehouse year, plus your money lands in a regional food system instead of a commodity chain. Small mills also increasingly sell heritage wheat varieties, older grains with names and flavors the commodity system flattened out. The flour aisle's version of the heirloom corn from our tortilla file. Even doing this once, one bag, one weekend of baking, performs the same service as the two-ingredient ice cream and the fresh masa. It teaches your senses what the real product is, hands you a permanent internal benchmark no marketing can overwrite, and after that, no bag of white silence ever fools you again. So there it is, the flour file, on the record. Flour gassed white to counterfeit patients. A yoga mat chemical that retreated to the quiet brands after its scandal. A possible carcinogen banned across 6 major economies. And legal in your biscuits. The word enriched, describing a legally mandated apology. Brown bread in costume. Whole wheat sold pre-ruined by time. A weed killer question answered for $1. The most trusted powder in the kitchen carrying the same raw warning as chicken. And a specialty shelf where every convenience is a treatment. Against all of it, 4 printed words: unbleached, unbromated, whole, organic, and a nose that knows sweet from crayons. Flour is the oldest processed food humanity makes. 10,000 years of stones and patience. And everything wrong with the modern bag was added in the last 100 years by an industry optimizing warehouses while wearing a windmill. Share this with the baker in your family. The one with the flour bin they never smell, and the whole wheat bag from 2 summers ago. And with anyone who lets kids eat the batter. That one segment is the whole video in a house with children. It's the difference between a tradition and a hospital visit. And nobody at the flour company was ever going to tell them. Then check our files on the tortillas this flour becomes and the bread aisle it feeds. Because the entire grain section has a record now. New investigations every single week. And the bread these bags become already has its own file on the channel. Watch it next, and the whole grain section is yours. This has been the Flour File. Read the 4 words, question the white, and never let a warehouse sell you a windmill.